Good afternoon, and welcome to the Dialogues with the Betchamber, Brazilian Opportunities for American Businesses. This is the fourth installment of this series and the first to be conducted in English. My name is Syamken, and I am an associate with the Texan Chamber of Commerce in Brazil, or as
Recording in progress.
may know it better, Câmara Texana de Comércio no Brasil. I am also a student at the University of Texas at Austin, studying international relations, Portuguese, and Spanish. I have the privilege of introducing today's keynote speakers and being your moderator for the event. Our speakers for the event are Professor Douglas Cândido. Professor Cândido will speak to the structure of Brazilian institutions, importance of tax and economic information, and the strength of the Brazilian market. Mr. Victor Ribeiro will serve as Professor Cândido's translator, and the two will share a joint dialogue with a question and answer format. We also have Dr. Karine Henani, who is a chamber member. Dr. Henani will discuss opportunities for growth, important considerations for American business people, and will answer the question, why Brazil? And finally, we have Mr. John Cuttino, who is the president of Portal Commerce and Logistics LLC, a US-based consulting firm, and is also the president of Portal Consultoria em Logística Empresarial, the Brazilian side.
Oh, sabia que tinha.
I'm also going to ask if you please wouldn't mind, everyone go ahead and mute your mics just to respect the speakers and to have the event have the most ideal structure. Thank you. Mr. Cuttino will share a presentation looking at case studies regarding Brazilian transportation, innovation centers, and the oil and gas market. The event structure will be based in 3 parts, and each speaker will have about 20 to 25 minutes to present. There will be a brief answer following each speaker's presentation. Blake and I will also share a brief video before each presentation. I would also like to let you know that this event is being recorded. I very much look forward to hearing our speakers' thoughts and insights about business in Brazil. Lastly, I would also like to thank everyone for their time and willingness to be here today with us. Without further ado, I will pass the virtual mic to Blake to introduce himself and to play the first video. Blake, take it away.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to Dialogues with the Betchamber. My name is Blake Griffin, and I'm an institutional associate at the Texan Chamber of Commerce in Brazil, and a student at the University of Texas at Austin, studying linguistics and Portuguese. To open the event, we would like to share a brief video that lays out the economic landscape of Brazil.
Brazil is a continent-sized country. We're the 5th largest country in the world, and we have the 5th largest population. We are among the 10 largest economies. We are ranked even higher in production, exports, and of course, investment opportunities.
Soy, coffee, sugar, chicken, oranges, beef, corn, iron, beverages, cotton.
That sums up Brazil. Opportunities are everywhere, be it in the free economic zone of Manaus, in the oil and gas industry in Rio de Janeiro, fruit production in the São Francisco Valley, in the production of iron ore in Pará, which continues to grow significantly, in the large grain crop of the Central West region, or the enormous potential of our renewable energy matrix. But how can we integrate all this? How can we connect all the different countries into one? How can the country advance further and further? That is the job of the Ministry of Infrastructure. We have one of the largest transportation networks in the world and promising growth potential for the coming years. The time has come to diversify our matrix, further increasing the participation of railways, waterways, and cabotage transport. The Ministry of Infrastructure's mission is to connect Brazil. Today, investing in the country means to be in touch with great investment opportunities. A lot has already begun to become a reality, and much is yet to come. Our project agenda for the coming years includes all means of transport, In the railways, the strategy is to connect the growing production of the countryside to the main ports of Brazil. Our roadway sector also keeps growing, and this growth is accompanied by investment possibilities. In each Brazilian port, thousands of opportunities arrive every day, and soon there will be a lot more to come. As for airports, the new concessions made the sector take off and gain even more prominence. Expectation for the next steps is skyrocketing. We are ready to move forward alongside the world's great investors. In the coming years, from north to south, we will see a great transformation in transport and infrastructure. Be a part of it. Ministry of Infrastructure. Our mission is to connect the country by river, roads, air, and sea.
So we're actually having to change up the order of operations a bit today. Our first speakers will be our first speakers will be Professor Douglas Cândido and Vitor Ribeiro. Professor Cândido is a business administrator specializing in foreign trade. He's the co-founder and strategy director of OMNI Global Group, which functions by auditing, structuring, and operationalizing the import and/or export processes, therefore generating economic and financial results for their customers. Douglas will be accompanied by Vitor Ribeiro, a student of accounting and an institutional associate with the Texan Chamber of Commerce in Brazil. Their presentation will be in a question and answer format, with Victor acting as a translator for Professor Cândido, explaining the structure of Brazilian institutions, important tax and economic information, and the strength of the Brazilian market.
Thanks, Blake. I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, then. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name.
This is just a gentle reminder once again to please turn off your mic if you're not speaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Vitor Ribeiro. I'm an institutional associate with the Texas Chamber of Commerce in Brazil, and I'll be your host for this next segment. During this part, we are going to talk to Mr. Douglas Cândido, whom Blake just introduced, about opportunities and obstacles in Brazil, and how best to set up shop here in our market. The interview will be conducted both in English and Portuguese. Questions will be taken first in English, then Portuguese. Mr. Douglas will answer them in Portuguese, and I'll translate his key points to the audience. This won't be a direct translation. I'll take his key points and give them to you. On behalf of the Betchamber, I'd first like to thank Mr. Douglas for taking the time to talk to us today. Good afternoon, Mr. Douglas. Are we good to go?
Sim, estamos prontos.
Okay, then. So let's start with the first question. To the basics, tell us a bit about your work. How can you help companies establish here in Brazil?
Bom, primeiramente eu queria dizer que... Posso falar, Vitor?
Vontade.
Primeiramente, eu gostaria de dizer que eu fico muito feliz pelo convite, né? Eu acho que é um momento importante que a gente vem passando e que é muito legal a gente estar passando isso para o movimento das pessoas que têm interesse em investir no Brasil, porque realmente é a bola da vez. Mas entrando na pergunta de fato, né, Vitor? Só para fazer as considerações, assim, na verdade, eu tenho atuado muito tempo com internacionalização de negócios, né? E mais precisamente, não só com a inserção de empresas em outros países, mas também com a área operacional. Então, envolve logística, parte aduaneira, né? Parte de comércio exterior como um todo. Na verdade, hoje, além de ter uma empresa que faz a parte de comércio exterior, a parte de operação, a gente também tem a parte de internacionalização, ou seja, de acesso a mercados, tanto externo quanto no Brasil. Então, a gente tem uma equipe grande para isso, né? E o meu trabalho, ele consiste basicamente em desenvolver o planejamento estratégico, né? E um plano de ação que são assertivos. A gente tenta mitigar aí os riscos, né? E maximizar o lucro dos clientes dentro do mercado. Então, a gente tem uma equipe grande para isso, né? E o meu trabalho, ele consiste basicamente em desenvolver o planejamento estratégico, né? E um plano de ação que são assertivos. A gente tenta mitigar aí os riscos, né? E maximizar o lucro dos clientes dentro do mercado. Então, a gente tem uma equipe grande para isso, né? E o meu trabalho, ele consiste basicamente em desenvolver o planejamento estratégico, né? E um plano de ação que são assertivos. A gente tenta mitigar aí os riscos, né? E maximizar o lucro dos clientes dentro do mercado. entre as instituições, né, que amparam todo o ecossistema empresarial, né, hoje tanto em São Paulo quanto em Santa Catarina, que é a nossa base, né, enfim. A gente tem um programa que a gente chama de Safe Lending Program, ou seja, é um programa que a gente entende que é para quem de uma maneira segura, mais tranquila, basicamente é isso.
So, main task of companies develop business and action plans in order to mitigate risks and maximize profits. He has an approach that he calls safe lending. It goes beyond just providing management expertise. It links all players involved in the ecosystem to help better position the company in the market. So moving on to the second question.
Okay.
When we're talking about Brazilian market, what is the first step when it comes to doing business here, in your opinion?
Bom, o nosso país aqui, ele é de uma extensão continental bem grande, então a primeira parte que a gente sempre começa entendendo, pesquisando o mercado, né? Entender qual é a dor de cada região é importante. A cultura que a gente tem, né, na região de São Paulo, em tratando-se de negócios de Santa Catarina, já tem uma diferença. E olha que a gente não está numa distância muito grande. Ainda assim, existem instituições governamentais que apoiam, né, o micro e pequeno negócio, que são apenas ideias também, muitas vezes, né, e orientam qual é o melhor caminho para poder seguir em termos de gestão. Por isso que eu né, entendo que tu se apoiar em empresas que atuam com inteligência de mercado, seja elas privadas ou públicas, é o que vai vai proporcionar um ganho de tempo, dinheiro e energia, que são as três coisas que eu sempre falo que a gente tem que investir, já que a gente vai perder, né?
Exactly. He said it is essential to reach out to locals and research the different Brazilian regions. As you guys may know, we have a lot of different Brazils in here. Rio, regions, and a lot of Brazils. Considering Brazil is such a large continental country, understanding the regional culture and dynamics you'll be dealing with is paramount. There are some public institutions who support small business or even just business ideas, assisting with management and guidance. Nonetheless, to Douglas, relying on a company that operates in market intelligence provides benefits in time, money, and efficiency. So our third question is about business environment and tax system. Brazil is notorious for its complicated business environment and also its burdensome tax system. In your opinion, Mr. Douglas, what is the best way to deal with that and legally start a business here in Brazil?
Eu sempre digo que, assim, eu até falei sobre pesquisa de mercado agora há pouco, né? Inteligência competitiva é o nome que eu trago sempre para a mesa. Eu acho que quanto mais inteligência tu tem para encurtar o caminho, né? Ou seja, eu tenho uma metodologia de internacionalização, né? Que agora não vem ao caso, mas que o P de processo é o grande diferencial, é onde todo mundo vai travar. E quando a gente está falando de assuntos como esse, a gente sempre trava bem nesse caminho. Então, eu sempre falo de inteligência competitiva, ou seja, para poder encurtar essa distância, né, até o mercado, eu sempre digo que tem escritórios de advocacia, tem escritórios de contábeis, tem gente que trabalha em termos de gestão tributária, em termos de gestão contábil, e não só apenas fazer o dia a dia da empresa. Eu penso que tem que ser essas figuras para poder trabalhar a questão de planejamento tributário e societário, né? Porque no Brasil existem algumas complicaçõezinhas aí, então, enfim, não é tão como a gente vê no próprio Estados Unidos, né, que é tão simples a gente fazer. A gente cria a nossa própria governança nos Estados Unidos, quando temos uma empresa. Aqui a gente tem modelos, né, previamente ditos. Então, eu entendo que tem que ser esse o caminho, né, usar a inteligência competitiva para que a gente tenha e possa ter para quem está chegando, né, uma estratégia mais sustentável no médio e longo prazo, né, para que eles não cheguem aqui e tenham problemas e que tenham que retornar ao país, né?
Mr. Douglas points out that the best way to shorten the distance to the market is through companies focused on competitive intelligence. He's very keen on this competitive intelligence because it's what will help you to develop a sustainable strategy to the medium and long terms. So he says the best way to do it is reaching out to local accounting and law firms so they can because they already know the market, and they can provide corporate and tax services that will benefit you in the long and medium terms. So
Yes.
question number 4. Now regarding credit and capital, are there Brazilian institutions suitable for providing this kind of support?
Bom, assim, instituições de crédito, essas instituições financeiras, elas estão sempre abertas a captar investimentos, né? Todas as instituições privadas e públicas trabalham, né, dentro de captar de alguma maneira investimentos. Ainda mais num país que nem o nosso, que vem crescendo, trabalhado com vários deles, mas assim, trago por ser entusiasta do empreendedorismo, os fundos de investimentos, né? Até porque fundo de investimento, quem tem realmente um bom negócio e se vende para um fundo de investimento, sabe se realmente é um bom negócio ou não, né? Ninguém vai arriscar o dinheiro, né, sendo que não é seu. Então, assim, eu gosto muito de fundo de investimento, eles conseguem não só investir para exponenciar, mas eles conseguem acelerar um negócio, eles trazem um pouquinho da expertise em gestão, em conhecimento de mercado, eu acho que isso é bastante interessante, e é algo que a gente tem bastante no Brasil, tá? Até, assim, mais para frente a gente pode falar um pouquinho mais, né, Vitor? Mas, principalmente na tua região, tá, as Minas Gerais. Minas Gerais também tem bastante fundos de investimento que captam, não é só no grande centro como São Paulo, tá? Aqui no Brasil, por que eu falo de fundo de investimentos, né? Até porque, não só pela crescente que a gente vem demandando, mais economicamente falando, mas porque eu gosto de brincar que aqui no Brasil realmente a gente acaba formando marinheiros, né, que sabem navegar em mares mais agitados, né? Então aí fica a dica. Eu acho que fundos de investimento aqui no Brasil apoiam mais negócios do que o próprio instituições financeiras, né?
According to Mr. Douglas, Brazil has some institutions, both private and public, who support foreign companies and provide credit for their operations. He underscores hedge and venture capital funds, who are always on the lookout for investment opportunities in scalable and high potential businesses. Though, as an enthusiast of local entrepreneurship, he considers us Brazilians aptly suited for any challenge, used to the rough seas as we are. So, next question, I think it's one of the hardest ones. What about taxes?
Bom, falar de impostos no Brasil é um movimento um pouco complicado, né? Mas, enfim, a gente viu aí recentemente a redução que foi realizada nos combustíveis, né? Acho que esse é o maior tema quando a gente mexe com infraestrutura, seja ela secundária ou não, né? Mas o combustível faz parte. A gente acaba tendo uma maior competitividade em todos os setores da economia, né? Ou seja, é um investimento, na verdade. A gente acaba aumentando o consumo e posteriormente, a gente consegue trazer mais empreendedores para adentrar dentro desse mundo dos negócios. Claro que a gente também traz uma maior competitividade para as indústrias, porque no Brasil não sei até onde o pessoal andou assistindo, mas foram reduzidos a carga tributária no IPI, né, que é o Imposto de Produto Industrializado, e que afeta o consumo como um todo, mas muito mais as indústrias, né, o industriário. Então, por esse movimento, a gente vê essa redução constantemente, até por isso que a gente vê que o Brasil vem girando também, né? Então, a gente viu isso na prática, inclusive, né?
In the matter of taxes, Mr. Douglas mentioned tax cuts, for instance, for fuel. It's a trend that gives greater competitiveness to Brazilian industries, increases consumption, and helps every sector of the economy. In the long run, you end up having a much more attractive business environment. He also mentioned the recent tax cuts for the IPI, which is a tax levied on industrialized goods. It is also helping very much Brazil, every major sector in Brazil. Next question is about the market. Where are the opportunities, in your opinion?
Bom, eu falei anteriormente de inteligência competitiva, então, assim, sempre um estudo com inteligência competitiva é o passo inicial, né? Quando eu falo de inteligência competitiva, porque a gente tem vários cenários dentro de uma pesquisa de mercado, né? A gente tem aquela que a gente olha muito de fora, só pesquisando, né, só pesquisando em fontes, claro, fontes confiáveis, tem aquela que a gente vai ao mercado. Então, ir ao mercado brasileiro é muito importante, né? Até por conta do que a gente já falou aqui, que a gente tem várias regiões e tem culturas diferentes. Mas, enfim, o estudo de inteligência competitiva é o passo inicial e, nesse sentido, a gente vê várias áreas, né, como o agronegócio brasileiro, né, que é e será um dos maiores do mundo em subsistência familiar, né? A gente já vê isso acontecendo, seja pelo mercado árabe, que nos consulta muito, já vem avançando aqui dentro, inclusive, a própria China, né, também, mas assim, então, não só para essas grandes potências como a China, que até recentemente eu vi um estudo que em 10 anos a gente deve aumentar em torno de pelo menos 5% da nossa participação naquele mercado. Eu digo participação brasileira dentro do mercado chinês com relação ao agronegócio. Em 10 anos, na verdade esse número é até um pouco maior, mas eu coloquei aqui para ser um pouco mais comedido. E hoje em Florianópolis, por exemplo, a gente tem um polo muito forte que é na área de tecnologia da informação com as startups, né? Então, eu também venho trabalhando fortemente dentro disso, então eu queria trazer um pouquinho disso. Então, além do agronegócio, né, que a gente tem essa projeção, as próprias startups, né, da área de tecnologia da informação, que a gente veio com uma mão de obra tão qualificada, que hoje a gente tem empresas aqui que vendem, né, que locam essa mão de obra para as companhias estrangeiras, para os seus projetos em tecnologia da informação. Só para ter uma ideia, então eu vejo esses dois mercados como dois setores bem relevantes, né?
Mr. Douglas said that, first of all, in any case, no matter where you want to act, where you want to operate, developing a business plan based on competitive intelligence must be your first step, no matter what. He highlights then two sectors, agriculture and IT. Agriculture is expected to increase in at least 50% of its market share in China in the next 10 years, and also has very good relations with the Arab markets. In the case of IT, Brazilian startups, especially from hubs like Florianópolis in the state of Santa Catarina, with their highly skilled workforce, are already doing relevant business abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And any other sector you consider under the radar would like to point out?
Sim, eu vejo que a indústria do conhecimento, né, que até apontei agora, basicamente, e a de transformação são oportunidades que a gente tem que observar para poder investir, sabe, Vitor? A indústria do conhecimento hoje, como eu estava falando na resposta anterior, ela disponibiliza mão de obra já qualificada ao mundo, né? Principalmente aos Estados Unidos, a gente sabe que tem bastante mão de obra brasileira nessa área de tecnologia da informação, por exemplo. Aqui em Florianópolis é um celeiro, e hoje, com o advento do mundo virtual, né, cada vez mais relevante, o trabalho remoto, a gente tem visto cada vez mais crescer o número em Florianópolis, por exemplo. Então, a gente, por exemplo, no grupo da gente, a gente tem um especialista nisso que é a Brave, por isso que eu trago ele para a mesa, porque ele é um exemplo, né? A Brave é um exemplo de o quanto ele vem crescendo a cada ano da existência, né? Confirmando, então, que o mundo está nessa direção, que aqui a gente é um grande celeiro, né? Com relação a alocar, por exemplo, pessoas, né? Essa indústria que a gente chama de indústria do conhecimento para outros países, enfim. Mas não só da transformação, mas eu também, não só do conhecimento, mas eu também gostaria de pontuar da transformação, que com o atual momento de redução da carga tributária do IPI que a gente falou anteriormente, a gente conseguiu dar um passo muito importante. Também estou no meio desse polo aí da indústria de transformação e a gente vê quantos investimentos estão sendo feitos nessas empresas, investimentos estrangeiros, inclusive, tá? Então, assim, basicamente é isso. Teria outros dois aí que, obviamente, né, até foi levantado no início, até no vídeo passa, que é o petróleo, né, óleo e gás, e a questão também do setor de energia eólica, né? Então, assim, são os painéis solares, desculpa. Então, assim, isso aí agora também está crescendo bastante no Brasil, e são outros dois setores, mas eu olho muito para esses aqui que eu trouxe, porque realmente os outros dois já estão bem saturados, já estão bem trabalhados, mas esses dois aqui vão crescer cada vez mais, eu acho que é um ponto interessante hoje.
He believes creative industries have a huge potential and should be closely watched by anyone interested in investing in Brazil. They are already net exporters of skilled labor, how he had mentioned in his earlier answer, and have been on a sustainable growth path for some years now. Manufacturing is also poised to greatly benefit from tax cuts, especially related to the IPI, a federal tax levied on industrialization that we had already mentioned. These measures open a number of avenues for Brazilian industries to invest and grow and attract capital. He also mentioned oil and gas and renewables, which he thinks have a great potential to grow as well, even though they are a bit saturated. What are the main obstacles, in your opinion, for international businesses in Brazil?
Então, Vitor, aí a gente tem as questões já sabatinadas, né? Que é a corrupção, a burocracia, a insegurança jurídica, a própria logística, né, interna nossa, a carga tributária, mas eu acredito que se você fizer um bom estudo, né, e planejar estrategicamente e operar dentro da regra, né, brasileira, logicamente utilizando ela ao teu favor, a gente não tem grande surpresa, e muito ao contrário, a sensibilidade que eu tenho dos empresários hoje é realmente a redução significativa dessa sensibilidade, né, essa sensibilidade que os empresários têm com relação a esses temas. Então, hoje o Brasil, para quem está operando internamente, já vê com outros olhos. Eu estou falando do ponto de vista dos empresários, logicamente, né, dos industriários, enfim.
His concerns are mostly related to those I think most people are aware of: corruption, bureaucracy, internal logistics, tax burden, and also a lack of clarity in legal matters. He thinks, however, that all these issues, if properly analyzed and planned, dealt with in a legal and correct manner, so you can avoid potential unfortunate surprises.
Yeah.
To wrap things up, which strengths Brazil has to offer? What makes this country stand out as a business opportunity?
Bom, assim, eu começo sempre falando da mão de obra empreendedora que o país tem, né? Acho que essa é a força motriz, e a gente vê que o Brasil, proporcionando como um todo a economia, um ambiente mais próspero para negócio, é isso que a gente vê, né? A gente vê cada vez mais eles empreendendo. Então, assim, a gente hoje não precisa mais ficar refém da CLT, né? Aquilo que a gente temia tanto tempo atrás, e até vários modelos de negócio temem muito pela forma de como eles têm que atuar, né, nos seus negócios para fazer sentido. Então, hoje a gente tem alguns postos de trabalho já sendo ocupados por prestadores de serviços formalizados, né, como o MEI, que é o microempreendedor individual, e isso está permitindo que os micro e pequenos negócios atuem com os grandes negócios, né, e aí com essa lei aí da terceirização, né, essa lei que veio para poder prestar serviço dessa maneira, né, a gente vê que existe uma relação agora maior de ganha-ganha entre os empreendedores que já estão com o seu negócio um pouco maior, né, e aqueles que estão começando e ainda são um micro pequeno negócio. Então, um ambiente com empreendedores de mares agitados, né, e portanto propícios à inovação, é isso que eu vejo. Além de ter hoje uma biodiversidade importante para o ecossistema mundial, né, o que faz com que a gente consiga receber bastante investimento, ou seja, são mais baratos aos estrangeiros por conta da desvalorização do real frente às moedas mais fortes do mundo, né, como o dólar, o euro. Então eu vejo isso com bons olhos também. E para sermos impulsionados a competir internacionalmente, por consequência, o investidor estrangeiro obtém daí conosco excelentes ganhos, né, como toda a sociedade brasileira, logicamente. Então eu olho muito para uma relação realmente de construção, de ganha-ganha, né.
He says recent deregulations and initiatives in the labor market, along with potential future laws, contribute to encouraging prospects in the matter of business-minded workforce. He also cites an environment made up of sharp entrepreneurs used to restless tides and therefore prone to innovate. And on top of that, Brazil's rich biodiversity and natural resources, almost unparalleled in the world, along with the recent devaluation of the real, make the country a true magnet for capital. All these assets put Brazil in a privileged position to offer huge profits, not only to investors, but also to its citizens and society as a whole.
Yes.
And this closes our interview with Mr. Douglas Cândido. Again, on behalf of the Betchamber, I'd like to thank Mr. Douglas and our audience. Back to Blake.
Obrigado, Vitor.
Thank you both so much for your insights and words. Mr. Cândido, my question to you is, can you share an example of Brazilian institutions that support American businesses with financial capital? Where are these firms principally located?
Ok, Sara, obrigado. Na verdade, em termos de instituição financeira, até durante as perguntas eu acabei respondendo já, mas assim, eu vejo o Banco do Brasil como uma excelente alternativa, né? Porque ela é uma ponte, né? Ela tem a presença forte no Brasil e ela também está em vários locais nos Estados Unidos há bastante tempo, né? A gente chama-se Banco do Brasil Américas. Eu acho que o americano que já tem um relacionamento com o mercado americano, e aí o Banco do Brasil Américas ele pode se apoiar nisso e fazer essa ponte. A gente tem também o Santander, né? Eu acho que é uma grande instituição. Eu tenho algum relacionamento com o pessoal, a unidade desses bancos fica tudo em São Paulo, né? Na Paulista, mas a gente tem um bom relacionamento. A gente vê que eles também têm esse movimento por estar em vários lugares do mundo. Mas eu, como já falei anteriormente, eu indico mais os fundos de investimentos que eles trazem essa pegada de negócios, de acelerar negócios, né? E aí eles estão concentrados geralmente entre Minas Gerais, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, não que não tenha outros estados, né, pessoal? Mas assim, ficam mais concentrados ali. Mas eu vejo que os fundos de investimentos para acelerar os negócios são mais interessantes. Então, eles entram por dinheiro, com conhecimento, né, com a gestão e conhecimento de mercado, tá?
Mr. Cândido said that the principal institutions he thinks about are Banco do Brasil, which is in many different parts, as well as Santander, and that kind of, apart from these banks, investment funds specifically looking to help at starting businesses are really even a more ideal way for American businesses to help find venture capital in Brazil as well. And these, in the states with I think the most I guess, helpful and the most open to looking at foreign investment are Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Minas Gerais. Thank you.
Thank you again to Vitor and Douglas. We will now show another brief video, this one highlighting a specific region of Brazil, the state of Paraná, and its particular opportunities that it presents for businesses.
Paraná, state with a strong economy, an investment accelerator. Its GDP is larger than those of Uruguay, Bolivia, and Paraguay added together. Its population exceeds that of countries like Portugal and Sweden, and is already leading in the southern region. Paraná is a world reference in agribusiness and high technology on the fields. With little over 2% of the national territory, the state answers for 17% of the grain harvested and has the highest productivity in the country per square meter planted. These and many other forms of wealth are moved on railroads and roads that compromise the integration ring. With works in duplication that progress, connecting the main production regions in less time and with more safety. Paraná has 7 airports with regular commercial flights and a further 33 for executive and agricultural aviation, automotive OEMs, computers, equipment, food and beverage industries. The industrial park with the state-of-the-art technology is one of the most diversified in the country. Its companies are recognized for their high levels of efficiency. Copel, Paraná Power Utility Company, is present in 10 states in Brazil and has 42 generation plants with different energy matrices. Traded in the main stock exchanges, has level 1 in corporate governance. Adding the production of Itaipu Binational, Paraná has the largest power generation in Brazil. Copel Telecom has optic fiber coverage for 100% of the territory of the state. Compagas has gas delivery main system with 824 kilometers. Sanepar, considered the best sanitation company in the South and the second best in the country, is projecting investments of over 7 billion reais in the next 4 years. And in order to promote credit, development, and enterprising mindset, Fomento Paraná Paraná is the best link between the Mercosur and the Brazilian Southeast region. In a radius of 1,500 kilometers, there is a GDP of around 1.3 trillion US dollars. Paraná, Brazil, and Mercosur countries count with the port of Paranaguá, the country's largest grain exporter terminal, and the second in general freight movement. The main cities in Paraná offer structure and quality of life for Brazilians and foreigners. They are ranked among the first positions in HDI and security rates. Paraná is a powerful hub of innovation and technology. There are 7 state universities with their several campi. Test labs, startups, technological development and entrepreneurship also graduate and qualify professionals in Paraná. The government of Paraná is moving to enhance partnerships, moving fast to progress with national and global investors. There are opportunities in the area of construction, management and administration of roads, railways, capacity increases in port terminals, as well as in the area of biotechnology, innovation, industry, and energy. There is space, legal support, and security for those who believe in their strength and potential. Paraná, state that progresses, state partner of those who generate employment.
So our next speaker will be Dr. Karine Henani. Dr. Henani, as well as being an associate here at the Texan Chamber of Commerce in Brazil, is a lawyer with a master's degree in business law and an MBA in business management. She has worked for more than 20 years in the fields of contract management, foreign trade, internationalization of new markets, and business development. Today, she's going to answer the question, why Brazil? Talking about opportunities for growth and expansion of the American businesses and important considerations for American business people to make. Dr. Karine, you have the floor. Karine, you are still muted, just to let you know.
So first of all, I want to thank you, the Betchamber president, and to my colleagues in this conversation, Mr. John, Cuttino, Douglas, Cândido, Vitor, Sarah, and least but not the last, Blake, our support and colleague here. I want to thank for this opportunity to debate about this subject that is so relevant in this moment of recovery. After listening to Douglas Cândido, we have to think how to use the opportunities that we have available to grow, how to organize our strategic planning in a way that we can really use the opportunities we have. So when we are talking about internationalization, we are talking about growth. We are talking about ways to grow, the search, and how to find mechanisms, strategies, even tools to make a company grow. And maybe this is the greatest challenge that companies are facing nowadays. Find ways to grow, find a way to keep the growth or to continue to grow and develop new ways to grow. So that's why we are talking so much nowadays about innovation. That's why we are talking so much about rethinking our strategies, re-strategizing, reorganizing, replanning. And that's why we talk so much about organizations culture and human resource, like just said Mr. Douglas Cândido, the importance of the human resource in the process of growing. The business culture and the human workforce involved is a very important aspect when we are talking about international business. And this is because business are made for people, to people. Of course, there are many other important aspects, but this is an especially important one in my point of view. So today we are talking about growth and how to grow in a world that is showing clear signs of global recession, where a war involved huge business players like Europe is on hold, and how to grow after a pandemic that left so many negative effects. So this is the scenario that we are facing now, and we need to find exits. Finding opportunities to grow and development is challenging. So look to countries that have emerging but trustful economies can be a secure way to grow through internationalization. So to grow through internationalization in an economic and environmentally sustainable way, because this is another challenge, how to keep growing. So internationalization is a very known, effective strategy to grow. If it's correct applied, and more than that, if attended all the specific aspects demanded to make this process of take your company from one country to another, this can be the best way to success. But of course, there are special demands, like we said, and like Douglas just said. A good use of market intelligence based on real data, data that is trustful. This is very important. The process to get adjusted to the culture, what we call acculturization. Acculturization, not just only the people, the resources, but the company, the products, the operations. So why grow your company in Brazil? Where are those opportunities in Brazil? I will tell you why, but before we must make an overview of Brazil, not only about economics, but we must understand a little bit more about Brazil. Up front, I will alert you, it's not easy to understand, but it's not an obstacle to business. We are far more than soccer and samba country stereotype. We have soccer, we have samba, yes, we have, and those are also good businesses. But Brazilian market is a lot more prosperous in opportunities. First of all, we need to highlight the fact that Brazil is a country with a continental extension, being the 50th biggest territory in the world. It is more than 8 million kilometers of sea coast. Has a population almost 218 million people, which is the 90th biggest in the world. One special aspect of this population we need to highlight is the diversity. Douglas mentioned that, and we have to mention again. We know we speak a very peculiar and not so popular language, so it demands special training and knowledge to understand our mixed culture. Our culture has different influences. For example, in the south of Brazil, like we just saw in the video, we have a strong influence from Germanic immigration. São Paulo has the biggest community of Japanese out of Japan. And we have the biggest community of Lebanese out of Lebanon. So we don't need to talk about lack of diversity, but we have to analyze that this diversity contributes to a very peculiar and diverse culture, which reflects in a positive way to consumer market, because the diversity contributes to consuming different products. No doubt, this is a market very receptive to international companies and products. Definitely, this is not a closed nationalist market. Same happened with our religions and different origins. All those aspects have a huge impact on the success of an internationalization planning and process and implementation. Brazil has the 9th GDP in the world ranking, and it's the 10th economy in the world. So we are back to the Big 10. Our largest city in Brazil, São Paulo, with a population that's close to 13 million people. The state of São Paulo gathers more than 45 million people, with a GDP that could put São Paulo in the group of the biggest 20 countries in the world. And the São Paulo GDP is growing about 6% a year. So even having a not very secure moment in the past 2 years, São Paulo is still growing 6% a year. And another city that deserves this special place in this conversation is Rio de Janeiro, which also has a GDP of an entire country. And it's also in a state that is predicting to have a GDP growth for 2022, about 2.6, even after 2 years of pandemic. So why Brazil? The answer is pretty straightforward. We have at this point the most favorable business environment. Our GDP is solidly growing. In 2022, the inflation rate is about 6% a year, less than other big countries. You know, we have going through recovery in the best way, or we are organizing the recovery moment in a good way. And the prediction to inflation rate in 2023 is something around 5%, and in 2024, this will be something a little bit more than 3%. So, of course, we are being optimistic. No, we are being realistic. We are going according to the data we have now. So we have a very favorable business environment at this moment. And another important piece of information that needs to be considered in case of internationalization to Brazil is the exchange rate. Douglas just mentioned that the US dollar has gained value compared to Brazilian real. In the past 12 months especially, now we have $1 to 5.3 reais. Brazil is growing, there is no doubt about it. Maybe the speed is not the speed we wanted or we planned, but we have to consider all the obstacles we had on our way, such as the coronavirus pandemic, which was a real setback to every single planning and strategy. But even this event didn't change hardly the business perspective in Brazil for the next 5 years. Of course, adjustments on planning and strategy needed to be done, but at this point is already done and set to move on. The best part of this analysis is that even growing continually, Brazil still reserves a lot of opportunities and still has a great gap to be filled. and opportunities to be taken. It is not a saturated market. It is a market that still has space and eagerness to develop even more and to produce more richness for the country and for the companies. So where is the opportunity that was mentioned before? So we have many possibilities. Investment, like Douglas also said, joint ventures, tourism, clear energy, expansion of consumer market, and we have a richness, our biodiversity. On the contrary to what many may think, the Brazilian business environment is very receptive and prosperous to mature and consolidated companies, as well to startups. The startup environment can certainly help us to understand how the Brazilian market is developing fast and opening more opportunities. Brazil is the country with more unicorns, which are named successful startups. In the early 2000s, the only digital disruptive business in Brazil were a few like Airbnb and later Uber. Now, many born and raised Brazilian startups are capturing international investments and growing fast to very successful business. Many cases in finance and banking in showing the innovation power and creating real disruptive business model. Brazil has today something around 13,000, a little bit more than 13,000 startups, according to Brazilian Startup Association and Forbes studies. Almost half of all these startups are set in São Paulo. Almost like 49% of those businesses are concentrated in São Paulo. 28% in tech sector, 22% in services, 16% in retail, and only 6% in finance. Look how many opportunities we still have. These numbers not only proves the friendly and productive environment to innovation and investment, but also that is still a big share and business territory to be conquered. Brazil has a very strong business environment with very strong institutions, like Douglas Cândido just said, strong industry, strong market, and human resource for training and consultants. So we have the structure that is necessary to receive big or small companies that wants to join us. As we know, culture has a huge impact on business, and even more important when we are talking about international business. The thing in this world is not so much where you stand and what direction we are moving. Unfortunately, this quote is not mine. I'm borrowing this quote from Van Gogh, a writer and a statement, because this reflects 100% what I think. Your next move is the sentence, is the verdict of your business future. If you are choosing the right direction, you're going to find success. But if you look to the wrong way, you are probably facing loss or money or losing opportunities. Hope is not a strategy. So when we say, so hope things get better in the future without making any move, the company is completely strategyless. There is no strategy in hoping. So internationalization is an important tool to grow. It's an important tool to development, to profit for the country and for the companies. So this demands a lot of planning. This demands preparation, but can bring an outcome that really worth all the trouble to understand a different market. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Henani, for your presentation. You mentioned several times the importance of analyzing external factors and understanding internationalization, principally the war in Ukraine and the looming prospect of a global recession. My question to you is, how can businesses of any size prepare themselves to continue thriving in difficult economic climates?
Can you repeat? I couldn't hear the last part.
Yes. My question was, how can businesses of any size prepare themselves to continue thriving in difficult economic climates, such as a recession or war?
Well, this is nothing new. You know, business are prepared, and I say, this is what I always repeat. Business are not that delicate. You know, we have to be prepared to go through good phases and bad phases, and this is how things work. You know, if it's not going up and down, you're not alive. That's a real thing. So we have to be, the best way to put your company in a comfortable situation is to be prepared to deal with these moments that will be oscillating naturally. So you have to prepare. Of course, there is nothing that could prepare us last pandemic, but we have to have the possibility, organization, planning enough to rethink our plan, to reorganize our strategy on time. More than what you are going to do, I think the time you are taking the decision is the important thing. You can take the right decision, but if it's the wrong moment or after you need that, you are just wasting your time. So companies need to be prepared to move fast, to decide fast. And the best way is training, learning. So that's why we talk so much about the companies that are learning today, learning companies. We have to learn every day and to keep our people prepared to think fast, decide fast, and innovate. And that's the only way you can protect yourself from the natural moves of our society and economy.
Thank you again, Karine. We greatly appreciate your participation. And now we will move on to our final speaker of today, John Cuttino. John holds 2 master's degrees, one in public policy and one in Brazilian studies from the University of Texas at Austin, and a bachelor in history from Tufts University. He is also the president of Portal Commerce and Logistics, LLC, a US-based consulting firm, and Portal Consultoria em Logística Empresarial, a Brazilian consulting firm, both of which are dedicated to bookending the trade corridor, offering expertise in trade, transportation, and higher education. He has more than 25 years of experience in Brazil-US relations, including 13 years as the in-country Brazil representative of the Port of Houston Authority, and has been an active member of the Texan Chamber of Commerce in Brazil for more than a decade. John, you now have the floor, and I will present your slides as you speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, Max, Sarah, Blake, and great presentations, Douglas and Karine. Talking about Brazil, talking about scale and scope, opportunities to grow your business overseas, opportunities to bring products from Brazil into your country, United States. My comments will talk about 4 main points. Talk about infrastructure, talk about the business sectors that may be of interest to American investors, a little bit about the innovation economy, and then drill down for some specific targets. So first, in infrastructure, I'd like to talk, the big 3, telecommunications, energy, and transportation. Brazil over the last decade has undergone a lot of concessions, privatizations, and investment in ports, airports, railways, highways and intermodal or inland waterways. And I call your attention to a monthly publication from the Ministry of Infrastructure, which talks about partnership projects, where they elaborate and they update their investment prospects and projects throughout the year. This is the title page, just as an example of their latest edition. You can change the slide, Blake, thanks. So in airports, there have been lots of clusters of airport privatizations. And the big one that just concluded was Congonhas, Sao Paulo. In 2024, there will likely be the privatization of Santos Dumont and Galeão Airport. That will be big. That's the Rio de Janeiro market, the international and the domestic airport. But throughout the last decade, these clusters of airport privatizations, which involve more than one, have brought the attention of Munich, have brought the attention of international operators to come to Brazil. In all of these areas, I call attention to maybe the interior, the small and medium-sized airports, which states like Paraná have quite a few, Sao Paulo, quite a few, and the states even have their own privatization and concession programs. They're driving a lot of the growth in small and medium-sized cities and infrastructure. As the agro-biz expands throughout Brazil, new markets are opening, new markets where it really is beyond just Sao Paulo, Belo Horizonte, and Rio to invest. There's wide open opportunities for foreign investment to come in and help drive some of that growth into the interior. And you see it here with the outcome of the privatization and concession schedules for airports. It's worth noting that the government wanted to privatize Santos Dumont Airport separately from the international airport. However, cooler heads have prevailed to jointly put the international airport and the domestic airport together. That way you don't have Rio at a competitive disadvantage with Sao Paulo for international travel. So that is going to happen probably in 2024 with the terms being developed next year. It's an exciting opportunity for Rio de Janeiro. So look forward to that and all the investment, landside access to ports and airports. Also, if we go to the next slide, we look at ports. In ports, Brazil is a huge archipelago. A lot of the population is within 300 kilometers of the coast, with main ports all throughout. The Arco Norte, the northern region, which is fed by rivers like the Rio Solimões, Madeira, Amazonas river systems, they're growing very strongly. And a lot of the regulatory framework and enabling legislation is permitting private use terminals to flourish. So there are a lot of opportunities in the services to the private use terminals throughout Brazil and the inland waterway system and the ports. Brazil's public port authorities are in the process of being privatized. Espírito Santo, Santos Port Authority, and into the future, the Pará Dock Company and Bahia Dock Company, among others. So there are wide-ranging opportunities for foreign investment into ports. The enabling legislation for private use terminals opens up for operators to come in that don't have to be cargo owners. They can be third-party operators to handle cargoes, and those are great opportunities in the port terminal sector. And what we're seeing is ocean carriers get involved by acquiring or operating in joint ventures the port terminals. So you see a vertical integration of the supply chain with port terminals, ocean carriers offering end-to-end solutions. And this would go into other areas like storage and warehousing, cold storage in particular, very important for refrigerated cargoes, from regions like Paraná, where you have chicken, beef, and seafood, from Santa Catarina, requiring a lot of infrastructure around ports in the area of cold storage. So ports are a very interesting area for future investment. Next.
Desculpe, eu estou tendo problemas com o slide. I'm having a little problem
Okay.
with
Well, the railways, the largest infrastructure investments in the world in railways will be happening in Brazil. So a lot of the sourcing of materials, a lot of the locomotives, the rolling stock, those acquisitions, there are great opportunities in rail and in highways with the road construction program. I would call attention to the next slide, on a few of the industry sector trade shows that are very interesting to participate in, to gather contacts, to understand the opportunities, and to make networking with B2B, where you can close business and understand the opportunities. Are we going to be able to show that slide?
I'm trying to get them pulled up right now. I will have them up as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, moving right along. So the business sectors that are Brazil, as Karine greatly presented, the opportunities of a large, growing, dynamic economy all throughout the industry sectors. You have the top in-class trade shows, and Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro are both global and cosmopolitan cities. They offer not only the opportunity to get to know Brazil, but also cross trades, opportunities to access third countries, because you have so many opportunities to internationalize with other countries that are also there looking at Brazil. Brazil also has a very interesting foreign policy. A decade ago, they were focused on South, South, South. They have kind of a third way or impartial, non-aligned foreign policy with other countries that differentiate Brazil's foreign policy from the United States, for example. You may find a great access through Brazil to third countries like India, Russia, China, South Africa, the BRICS. And they are participating in the BRICS in the New Development Bank. You could change to the two slides, I believe, one slide. Next.
I'm sorry, it looks like the issue is when I share, so I'm gonna have to unshare and go to the correct slide, and I'll have it shared again in just 1 second.
Okay. Most of the trade shows in Brazil are sector-based, are on a biennial cycle every 2 years. Rio Oil and Gas is the strongest one in the oil and gas segment. And next year will be the opportunity for Offshore Technology Conference, which is based in Houston, but for many years has had a Brazilian version, OTC Brazil. You have the biggest transportation and infrastructure show in February, March, Intermodal South America. That's a highlight because you have the ports, the port terminals, and lots of foreign participation at that particular event, and the economic development organizations that surround them. So if you want to get to understand Brazil in the context of its insertion in the global economy, I highly recommend Intermodal South America as an important event to participate in. It's really one of those fun places too, where if you're with a group and you need to meet, you can say, oh, where are you? Oh, I'm in Leixões, I'm in Portugal. Where are you gonna meet? Oh, let's meet in Houston. So you're just flipping around the globe throughout the huge trade show expositions that they have at the Sao Paulo Expo Center. All of these are the main trade shows per segment. I've had the opportunity to participate in all of these, except for two, on more than one occasion. And I can tell you it's a great opportunity for networking and understanding the opportunities. Worth calling attention to is AgriShow in Ribeirão Preto. That's the largest agribiz trade show in Brazil, and one that the Câmara Texana, the Texan Chamber of Brazil, has participated in regularly. The Automec and Fenatran are the two largest auto and auto parts trade shows. The ABF Franchising, the Brazilian Association of Franchising Trade Show, counts itself as the largest franchising trade show in the world. And that is also a great opportunity to both bring franchising from the United States to Brazil and understand what are the opportunities being developed in Brazil that could come to the United States. Others that are very interesting are APAS, that is the Sao Paulo Supermarket Association trade show and the largest food and beverage trade show in South America. That has wide participation throughout the country and the world. And the United States often has a stand, the United States Foreign Agricultural Service. There are opportunities that might exist through US government agencies to exhibit at that show. For aviation and aerospace, the LAD Defense Expo, which next year will be in Rio de Janeiro, is also very important. For packaging, points to the opportunity for co-packing or for outsourcing production. That's another theme of opportunities, is nearshoring, looking at Brazil as a focus of production to export back to the United States. Fispal Technology highlights a lot of the packing technologies within Brazil and could be a great opportunity to get to know the potentials for outsourcing and re-exporting back to the US market. Web Summit in May in Rio de Janeiro is very important. That's the Portuguese organized Web Summit franchise that will be in Rio in May. And in the area of IT, that looks to draw maybe 15 to 20,000 visitors in the IT innovation economy. There are others, mining, Exposibram, which every other year shuttles between Belo Horizonte and Belém in the northern state of Pará. For mining, that's very important. The regional trade shows that are not listed here, but are very important. Expo Inter in Esteio, Rio Grande do Sul, near Porto Alegre, covers Rio Grande do Sul and is kind of an agri-show for southern Brazil. You have the Rondônia Rural Show in Ji-Paraná, Rondônia. These two will give you a focused look at other parts of Brazil beyond Sao Paulo and Rio. But the best show, if they ever put it back on, in my experience, was the one in Manaus, organized by the Superintendency of the Free Trade Zone, SUFRAMA. And that last was in 2015, I believe, FIAM. That show, should Lula win the presidency, may likely make another appearance. That also brings in the other nations of Colombia, Peru, the border countries, and you'll get a completely different look at Brazil through Manaus than through Sao Paulo and Rio. But anyway, this list, I hope it can serve for you to get acquainted with the opportunities. I think looking at outsourcing, nearshoring, that Brazil provides an incredible opportunity for US companies and US interests. If you look at the potential work stoppages on the West Coast and in China, rail strikes, transit time, delays, demurrage, congestion, the north-south trade corridor, east coast of South America to the US Gulf and East Coast North America, with 20 to 30-day transit times, can be much more reliable and less headaches than sourcing from the Far East. So I think there's some great opportunities for business to take a very good look at their supply chains and look at the Brazilian port sector, look at the Brazilian opportunities with business in both imports and exports. Okay, next. In the area of innovation, IT, startups, Brazil's been funding startups for 20, 25 years. And they have the National Association of Entities Promoting Innovation, and Proteki, with more than 300 members, encapsulates the innovation economy ecosystem. This is a snapshot from their website of all of the locations of the technology parks and the participants' business incubators. There are some hotspots for sure. If it's aviation, São José dos Campos. If it's medical hospital, it's Ribeirão Preto. If it's IT software, Santa Rita do Sapucaí in Minas Gerais. If it's fintech, Londrina, Paraná. Solar, renewable energies, Florianópolis is strong. Sao Paulo and Rio and Campinas are strong across the board because they are some of the most established. But there are pockets of excellence throughout Brazil. The opportunity for scale and scope works in both directions. A lot of these untapped regions of Brazil have developed startups working towards a national champion, a Petrobras, an Embraer, a Vale, an energy state-owned energy company that is subsidized, or there have been subsidies to help the startups. If they can't succeed with one national champion, they need to go international. There's a lot of great innovation occurring at the subnational level in Brazil that can break out overseas. And vice versa, I think US companies coming into Brazil may be making a soft landing through partnerships with the technology parks, incubators, and the similar companies. Brazil works a great deal through partnerships and joint ventures. And that's probably one of the best ways to enter Brazil is through joint venture and partnerships with an established entity. If you have to learn yourself and go it alone, the learning curve could be steep and you could be making a lot of mistakes. Very wise to hire tax attorneys, to hire specialized areas in customs, housebroking, and trade, to despachants to understand the local terrain. And as Douglas and Karine had mentioned, Brazil with continental dimensions, it's not one entity. One size does not fit all. 27 states, all 27 states have different histories. The colonization, the real politics are different for each state. So it behooves you also to look and understand each state with whom you're doing business. It was great to see the presentation of the state of Paraná, excellent state. So with this innovation economy slide, with the Web Summit coming in May, Rio de Janeiro, there's some great opportunities for networking and understanding who the players and actors are, the opportunities coming up soon in as early as May. Finally, I'd like to talk about some potential targets, specific targets. There's something of a windfall happening right now with Brazilian municipalities that have frontage to the offshore oil and gas platforms. Since 2017, Brazilian municipalities are seeing a windfall of oil and gas royalties and special participations. About every 6 months now, a new FPSO is coming online, adding hundreds of thousands of barrels a day of production to Brazil's offshore oil and gas. The cities here listed in 2021 by the amount of royalties and special participations. This is going to continue for the foreseeable future based on the current formula. Several of these towns don't have any historical vocation for oil and gas. They just are lucky. They have frontage to the offshore oil and gas. They're keen on diversifying their economy, not squandering this oil wealth, and making strategic investments. Some have created sovereign wealth funds, municipal wealth funds, and have created enabling legislation to form public-private partnerships, municipal development companies, and they're just starting this. Again, this is since 2017, more or less, these large royalties and special participations received by the states and the municipalities. So there's some great opportunity to find some targets that are in a decent financial situation, that have revenues coming in over and above. And those that have dedicated part of their budget to sovereign wealth fund and to targeted investments also are showing the willingness to want to diversify. One of the main opportunities, which was touched on in some of the comments, are in training. There is a lack of capacity in a lot of these municipalities. And so experienced, seasoned business that can come to Brazil and partner have a great opportunity to make a big impact for sustained growth in these cities. Now, that said, there is a Supreme Court case that could change the formula. It hasn't yet, to be more equitable to all of Brazil. But as it is right now, these are the cities and regions, Rio de Janeiro, Espírito Santo, Sao Paulo, maybe some of Bahia, that will benefit from the offshore oil wealth, oil and gas. So you can see, number one, Maricá with 1.3 billion reais in royalties in 2021 and 1.5 billion in trillion, I guess 250 million, 300 million, I should say, dollars. They have a population of 200,000 people. And what are they going to do? You know, they created a sovereign wealth fund, and there are a number of opportunities in tourism, offshore, transportation, industry, innovation there. Also, Macaé embarking on a port project with a thermoelectric power plant. You have a score and a whole host of opportunities in these towns, just as a specific example. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Brazil and some of the opportunities for investment. Thank you, Blake and Sarah, and I return back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cuttino, for your insights. My question for you is, how does an American business enter a trade show, and what methods are the most useful for creating partnerships?
Oh, it's great now. You don't need a visa. You don't need a visa to travel to Brazil. So if you see something next Tuesday, you can be on a plane on Thursday night. You know, you can be in Brazil the next day. I'm up here broadcasting, I guess, from near Boston, Massachusetts. LATAM just started a Boston to Guarulhos flight again, post-pandemic. So there are a number of non-stops from Chicago, Washington, New York, Houston, Miami, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, that you can take to Brazil. It's definitely worth looking at the exhibitor list and making contact before you go, understanding if there's an international liaison for these trade shows, as there are in many cases. Many multinational groups are that operate in different countries, multiple countries are the organizers. And I could say, you know, if you go to Sao Paulo, you're going to find a business tourism environment that is like no other. It's very welcoming. It's great for culinary, restaurant, nightlife as well. But the ease of networking at these events is what you'll find mind-boggling, and how Sao Paulo is a fulcrum for the rest of the world. Africa, Europe, the rest of South America. You can get a lot of value coming to Brazil that you may not find even in the United States, because Brazil has a very independent foreign policy. And, you know, if you want to bump into people from Iran and Israel in the same room, you'll do it in Sao Paulo.
Well, that is good information to know. Thank you. Blake, I believe we have one more video that we're going to share, correct?
Yes, we will now be sharing another short video that highlights a different state of Brazil, this one in the Central West region that is called Tocantins. So I'll put that on right now.
Tocantins, the place where our eyes and hearts shine with the same intensity, the place of astonishing landscapes, of lands in abundance, of natural resources, of the best animals, of sustainable tourism, of workforce, of joy, and the place of commitment with every one of those who has the same motivation. Turn the state a big producer of food for Brazil and also the world. In the center of Brazil, Tocantins is destined to occupy the strategic position of a great producer and worldwide exporter. Its position favors the distribution of goods and access to the main consumer gates of Brazil and the world. The growth of exports in just 1 year draws the attention. The evolution was of 26.14%. Tocantins has more than 277,000 square kilometers, an area bigger than England, Portugal, and Belgium together. It shares borders with 6 states: Maranhão, Piauí, Bahia, Goiás, Mato Grosso, and Pará. The backbone of Brazilian logistics crosses our lands. The multimodal transport logistics is strategic for those who produce and generate riches here. The North-South Railway crosses Tocantins and enables the access to Itaqui and Santos harbors, flowing the production fastly and with a low cost to any direction. Nowadays, there are 2 large platforms that work in the cities of Palmeirante and Porto Nacional, besides another one that's already being planned in Gurupi. This structure makes the grain and ore production to be easily exported to several continents. More than 7,000 kilometers of state and federal roads are already paved. The state government is preparing paving projects for new roads. An example is the road TO 500 that will bring a new flow of goods connecting Tocantins to the state of Mato Grosso. Palmas Airport, with the biggest area of the country, is due for the installation of companies that use this segment. Its cargo terminal is already in process of customization. The state has regular flights of passengers and cargoes provided by the main Brazilian flight companies, connecting Tocantins to southeast and west center of Brazil. With the new tax incentive that reduced the tax over aviation fuel, the companies have already started a new planning for new routes, including also the north and northeast of Brazil. The state is crossed by rivers that enable the full implementation of the Tocantins waterway, a mark in the transport logistics that will allow the integration between Tocantins and Amazonas basins, connecting by water the harbors of Belém and Manaus to Tocantins. Another important project is the Praia Norte harbor that will facilitate even more the connection between Tocantins to the Atlantic Ocean and the main harbors around the world. It will work as a depot of the Manaus Free Zone in Tocantins. The development will allow bigger agility and economy, reducing the distance to the European, American, and Asian markets. We are strong in agribusiness. The state is the last expanding viable agriculture frontier in the world. 8 million hectares of pasture, more than 5 million hectares yet to be explored. A herd of beef cattle of 8.7 million animals. The last 6 years, the grain production almost doubled. For the 2024-2025 crop, the projection is around 14.4 million tons of grains. In this time, there will be a growth of 2.1 million hectares in just 5 years. We have the second largest hydrographic basin of the country, with huge reservoirs that can get to 150,000 hectares of water blade, allowing the implantation of big aquaculture parks for fish farming. Tocantins water has a natural pH around 7.0 and the ideal temperature that favors the fast and uniform growth of fish during the whole year. With the permit for the creation of tilapias in fishnet tanks in Tocantins, new opportunities arise to the pisciculture productive chain enterprise. According to Macroplan Consulting, Palmas is the 6th best capital to live in Brazil. When it comes to health, Palmas ranks 2nd place among the 100 biggest cities of Brazil. When we talk about education, Palmas ranks the 4th place. Tocantins offers excellent options of recreation, sports, culture, health, and education, everything with safety. With a lot of work and will in one decade, Tocantins' GDP went above double. And it's because all of this that we are ready for the new phase of the world economy.
Alrighty, thank you, Blake, for playing that for us. I would also like to thank everyone in the audience. I know we're a little bit over time, but if you're willing to stay with us for a little bit longer, at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for general questions from any of the speakers or anything you'd like to add. Feel free to make a comment or a question. Again, feel free. And feel free to unmute yourself or type it into the chat if you're more comfortable. Também, por favor, sinta-se à vontade de perguntar em português. And if there's no immediate questions at this time, I just sent the link to the Betchamber to the Câmara Texana's website. There's all of our information if you'd like to have a little bit of a better look, as well as there's a WhatsApp button if you'd like to get in contact with us or ask a question at a later point. At this point, I think our event is finalized. Thank you all so much for coming. Muito obrigada. We really appreciate your attentiveness and participation. I would like to thank our awesome speakers for their time and insights today. What a fantastic event. And just to let everyone know, our next event will be at the CNAC in Rio de Janeiro on November 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In regard to this event, more information is coming soon, certainly on our website and Instagram. Once again, thank you all.